Hello everyone, this is CounterYolo, bringing you another video talking about Star Trek Online. And in today's video, I'm going to talk about the two Tier 6 Tholian starships that were announced today for the Tholian, or the Infinity Lockbox that's coming out really soon. The weird thing with that is that, unlike previous lockboxes that are being temporarily put out, that are temporarily retired with the Infinity Lockbox, because the Discovery Lockbox apparently has been doing so well in the game, or the Emperor's Lockbox, sorry, has been doing so well inside the game, they're actually going to keep it in the game with the Infinity Lockbox. You're also going to be able to get the boxes for free when the Infinity Lockbox comes out. That's really going to mess up the economy of the game for sure. They're basically saying lockboxes are worth 0 credits. Yep, have a nice day. And for those of you that bought lockboxes before with dilithium, don't know why you ever would have, but you could, is that, yeah, there's no point to now. So sad, too bad for those of you that wasted your dilithium doing that. Because we're talking about two ships today, I will not be going over the leveling stats themselves of these ships. They are both leveling starships, but because we're doing two ships, like other videos in which I've done two ships, I'm just going to go over the end game stats with some comparisons with each ship instead of doing leveling with both, because then the video would be super long with a lot of stats that, at least statistically, a lot of you just skip over anyway. But anyway, feel free to see the time links in the description for all that. If you do want to see the stats of that, just follow the link to the announcement itself, and you can see those stats for yourself. So I personally like the Orb Weaver much more inside the game. So of course I'm going to talk about the Tier 6 version of that ship first. And when I initially saw this ship, to me it was screaming that, because it's a Lieutenant Commander Engineering Miracle Worker and a Lieutenant Commander Psi, or Lieutenant Psi Command, that synergy seems much more akin to a support playstyle. You got the command for some great healing. It doesn't have a Lieutenant Commander command, so you don't have Suppression Barrage, unfortunately, to lower damage to your allies, so it's easier to heal them. But regardless, Miracle Worker has some great other stuff too to help support your allies as well. Especially if you want to hurt yourself, there's easy ways to significantly help your allies in the Miracle Worker specialization for this bridge after seats. Like normal for these videos, I'm going to highly encourage you to look at the C-Store starships that are available from the C-Store before you look at the stuff from the exchange. Just because if you buy a ship off of the exchange, it's just for one character on your account. If you buy a ship from the C-Store, it's for all of your characters on your account. Yes, there's some ships that you can't access cross-faction, other ones you can, but still for more than one character. If you buy it from the C-Store, you have access to more than just one character. If you buy it off the exchange, yeah, you have to buy it for each character, a brand new ship off the exchange, which gets expensive after a while. I've talked about these ships before, these two C-Store ones, so I'm not going to go into depth on them. Now, obviously, when we're looking at the Tier 5U version of this ship, the stats are very comparable. Slightly better hull and shields, but other than that, it's basically the same. The Ensign Science became a lieutenant to give it the full, 12? No, the full 13 bridge officer abilities. They're typical for a Tier 6 starship. Tier 5 and Tier 5U you have one ability less, just the way it is in the game. Tier 5U does get an extra console when you go to the U upgrade. But the Tier 5U Tholian Orb Weaver has been a staple for me for a long time whenever I've been suggesting to people potential science builds, which was actually the video that I was going to put out today. But then I had a gut feeling that Cryptic was going to release new starships today, and I was correct on that. So that video is going to come out probably in just a couple days. I'm going to give a little bit of spacing between this video and that one, just so that YouTube doesn't get mad at the channel. Trying to work the algorithm is really annoying. Yeah, it's just annoying the way it is. But anyway, Tholian Reaver is a great ship. For those of you that can't afford tier 6 starships and don't want to buy stuff off the C store and just want to earn a couple million credits and buy a tier 5 starship, this is a very solid one. The T5U upgrade comes innately with the ship. You can just click it and immediately get it. You don't have to get an upgrade token for it. It's a great starship. Well-rounded, decent stats. Not having that 6th science ability does hurt you a little bit. In that video that will be coming out next, I will give an example. So some example builds of how to work around that. Potentially also with the new trait with this tier 6 starship too, but we'll get into that later. Because of this ship right here, the prices for the Tholian Orb Weaver should be dropping very significantly. I mean, sure, maybe it's only 1 or 2 million, but whenever a ship, at least from what I've heard on console, it's only around about 5 to 7 million on average right now on console. It's definitely about that price, sometimes even less than that on PC as well. So it's not really that bad. Even for those of you that haven't gotten the energy cap increase, can still afford the tier 5U version of this ship just fine. The Thoth Palisade is still always going to be super insanely expensive on the exchange. There's just no way around it. Having really solid stats on a science vessel that's can also potentially have a battle cloak on it with consoles that actually are decent in PvE. There's no way to really work around that. I definitely could see a tier 6 version of the Thoth Palisade coming out in maybe 6 to 8 months. Especially because we're getting Tholian ships without really any theme around them at all. So, there's that. I mean, this is about the time when you would expect Mirror Invasion. So I suppose that we might be having that, right, pretty soon. This is about the time last year whenever we had Mirror Invasion. So, they might be doing that again. Who knows? For science vessels that are similar, when I saw the stats for this ship, I immediately thought of the Kretum science vessel, and I was right. The stats are very similar between these. For Starship Scene, it's slightly different just because back in the day it was a commander seat, a lieutenant commander seat, and 3 lieutenant seats is what you typically had. Nowadays, it's a commander seat, 2 lieutenant commanders with a lieutenant and an ensign seat. That's typically what the Starship Scene is now. Back in the day, go back a couple years, this was the standard. Which also had the Sonar Command Science Vessel, which I still feel is the best tanking science vessel that still feels like a regular science vessel. Has a commander, lieutenant commander, and 3 lieutenant seats as well. Not really spectacular. I mean, the Tholian Iktomi is honestly a better version. It's better than this ship, but it's still a decent ship. If you happen to earn this ship, then you've got a nice solid ship that's pretty comparable to this one, and you also have a nice console that's a clicky that you can use for any other ship in the game. That's really hard to get otherwise. But yeah, it's still decent. Looking at the leveling starships, here's the raw stats for them. I've talked about the Mirror Angle and the Vulcan Depel a lot on this channel. They each have their own starship comparisons video, so if you really want to know more about these ships in particular with strengths and weaknesses and such, see those videos instead of this one. Off of the exchange, the Crossfield Spearhead, I still feel is honestly the most overpowered science ship in the game for its just raw stats and its actual capability. Which, I mean, isn't to be unexpected. I mean, we do have the Discovery TV show going on. Well, I guess it's not a TV show. The Discovery Internet Streaming Service show. That doesn't really roll off the top of the tongue, does it? I don't know. Whatever we want to call the current Star Trek show. The Spearhead is the hero ship from it. It makes sense that it should be one of the best ships in the game. It's also why the price is a bit higher than what a typical other ship from a Infinity promotion pack or something like that would typically be in the regular price range. Keep in mind, all three of these ships, Parallax Simple Dreadnought, the Crossfield, and the Iktomi, should have about the same drop rate, which means they ideally should be about the same price on the exchange. Keep in mind, on the exchange, prices vary depending upon how the community feels how good or bad a ship is. If a ship is terrible, then the price is going to be way, way lower. If a ship is like in the middle of the pack, then it's probably going to be around 200 to 275 million energy credits. If it's a really overpowered ship, it's probably going to be around 400 to 500 million energy credits on the exchange. That's typically around the place where the Crossfield hovers. And that's why. At least on PC, that's kind of the way it is. When I got my Crossfield for one of my characters, it like dropped down. I saw one person decide to try to sell it at like 250 million. That's why I managed to get one. I was like, for that price, I'm willing to buy one and try it out. And yep, it's as overpowered as I thought it would be, especially for science tanking. It's very overpowered. I got it a while ago. You can see that old video, which is a terrible build, but it's still on the channel. Now for the last ones for this first part of the video, here's some fleet starships to think about. They're still solid. I mean, not the best, obviously, but you can actually earn fleet modules, and if you're part of a fleet with a high enough fleet military, then you can get these ships. There's not a lot of great science stuff for Klingons and Romulans. Even if you look at my best earnable tank ships inside the game video, most of the ships in that video are Federation ships. There just aren't a lot of Klingon and Romulan science ships inside the game. Just the way it is. So for our next part of the video, we're going over the Tier 6 Tholian Jorogumo, which is the Tholian Recluse carrier, the Tier 6 version of that ship. And again, as I've said before, please look at the C-Store ships inside the game first to see if there's something there that is good enough for you. Because if it's good enough, then might as well just buy it there. And then if you decide to roll another character, you don't have to keep on buying the ships over and over and over again. You buy it once, and you have the ships available for all of your characters, which is the best way to go, in my opinion. The Gemini Vanguard carrier is the only real endgame ready science carrier, and well, just carrier in general from the C-Store. The rest of them, there is a fleet version that makes them better. The other really tanky science ship from the C-Store is the Science Dreadnought. It's not a full for carrier because it's a hangar bay. It has one hangar bay instead of two, but it's still a solid ship too. What makes the Tholian ship interesting? Looking at a lot of stuff, I'm just gonna skip to this for a moment. Is this is one of the few ships in the game that has a commander unit universal seat. Most ships nowadays at the Tier 6 level will have at least one seat, if not two seats, that have a universal bridge officer stuff in it, so you can make it tactical, engineering, or science, and it's just fine. Having a commander seat for it is interesting. I haven't seen the meta for a while to know what's best there. I mean, before you basically had to do tactical because your seating just sucked otherwise. But nowadays, since that's Lieutenant Tactical and it's an Ensign Universal, you could get away with having just another tactical ability here, and you could make this an engineering or a science seat here much easier. Or if not, making it all science, There is the trait from the Tholian Tier 6 Orc Weaver now, which is pretty good for Photog Officer that I'll get to later in the video. This ship, the Tier 6 version, it only has one Bridge Officer specialization thing, which is the Miracle Worker seat, which is in the Commander, which means you get an additional Universal Console. Unfortunately, because this ship doesn't have 5 Science Consoles or 5 Tactical, you're not able to push it up to 6. I guess they wanted to make that unique for the promotion pack ships inside the game, which I guess makes sense. They want you to pay a lot of money to be able to have that ability. Okay, cool, whatever. The other ship in the game that, other than the only Recluse line that has a Commander Universal seat, is the Talshar Adaptive Battlecruiser, the Tier 6 and its lower Tier 5 variant. Decent ship, and it's also a ship that has sensor analysis and battlecruiser commands. Kind of like the Enterprise F from the C store that has sensor analysis and full cruiser commands. This ship has sensor analysis and battlecruiser commands, so it can be decent. None of these ships have a secondary deflector, so that's something to keep in mind. You won't do as much damage with these ships just going science. You need to go some other method besides just science, probably, in order to do really well. Or you can just not, and you're okay with less damage. That's totally a fine answer too. Now, when we talk about typical carriers off of the exchange, funny enough, this is a fun story, by the way. Before Victory is Life came out, the Herald Dreadnought Carrier was the cheapest Tier 6 starship on the exchange. Like, legitimately. I was tempted to buy this one time just because back in the day, I could regularly find these for about 45 million energy credits, which, considering the cheapest Tier 6 starships right now are at about the 200 million energy credit range. Whenever a ship is around 40 to 60 million on average, and now it's much more than that. Like, the ship tripled in price because of Victory's Life, and that everyone wanted a Tier 6 starship and they didn't care what ship it was. So that happened, and the price of this skyrocketed. But this ship is still a decent ship. Commander Tactical. You got 7 weapon slots, pretty solid hull and shields as well. A little bit lower shields than the Jorogumo, but it's still solid too. The Breen carrier that's really old. You can definitely see its age and its bridge officer seating and how weak it is, honestly. It's still serviceable though, and that's kind of the important thing. But anyway, and of course we have to talk about promotion packs to kind of close this out, because I mean the promotion pack ones are just very overpowered. The Herc Dreadnought Carrier had super high hull, really low shields. Those of you that really don't care about shields at all, it's a nice ship for you. It is a commander command, so it does have the inspiration mechanics with this too, so that's nice. There's a Gathi's entire Dreadnought Carrier. It's actually really good as well. It's got a Commander Miracle Worker with a Lieutenant Commander command. With Miracle Worker command is really good for torpedo builds. Okay, it's really good for torpedo builds. So that's why you see a lot of people with torpedo builds using this ship, because it's just a really good combo for them. But of course, as I've said before, typically, in my opinion overall, the best carrier in the game is the Enterprise J and its Klingon and Romulan equivalents too. You get molecular reconstruction, a gravitic lance, 2 hangar bays, and you still get 8 energy weapons. So it's a really powerful ship. Your impulse and inertia is terrible, but is to be expected on basically the biggest ship in the entire game. Anyway, let's go and get into final thoughts now. So, I mean, beyond the fact that they're leveling starships, and you finally get a Tier 6 Orb Weaver and a Tier 6 Recluse carrier, which is super nice, let's get into the traits and consoles. So, the Orb Weaver's trait is called Improved Photonic Officer, which it says that it's going to be increasing the duration of Photonic Officer, as well as while Photonic Officer is going, it increases your exotic particle generator damage, as well as increases all outgoing healing while it's active. In my opinion, for those of you that don't like Octobat builds, and especially if you have a lot of science slots, or at least a lieutenant science slot, and you don't like any abilities besides hazard emitters, Photonic Officer plus the improved Photonic Officer trait, I could see very easily being a decent replacement for Octobat builds inside the game. I mean, I still think Octobat's still going to be more popular by far, but this is a decent alternative, especially because in a lot of budget builds nowadays, I recommend using Photonic Officer. It's a real bummer that they're having Photonic Officer be on the exchange instead of being in the C-store. I think that's going to be much more available to players, but that's just me. The Starship trait from the Recluse carrier is Precision Multi-Type Targeting. Basically, whenever you use a subsystem targeting ability, it gives you an additional fire at will 1. So it actually wants you to use some beams with this trait. Now, what this does is it allows you to use subsystem targeting tactical abilities now. Before, honestly, the only targeting abilities I would ever use would be the basic ones on science starships that already have it built in. Outside of science starships, you have to actually slot a bridge officer slot in for a very specific subsystem targeting ability. With this, now you actually can do that much easier, because now you don't feel bad about having that instead of like fire at will. Now you can use that special ability and then boom, immediately have some extra fire at will. Which, now that I'm saying this out loud, it's another trait that gives you an additional fire at will / extended duration of fire at will inside the game for your non-tank captains. Because redirect and raise has always been basically go-to for beams, but a lot of people are like, well, I'm not a tank, I'm not going to be able to stack this up. So it's really just up to you. I feel Photonic Officer is way more powerful than Precision Multi-Targeting, but that's just me. The consoles themselves are nothing to really shake a stick at. The Tholian Web and the Tholian Iktomi Grid are just Tier 6 versions of the Tier 5 consoles themselves. That's what they're really there for. So, yeah. But when it comes to cons, the big problems with these consoles is that you can only use them on Tholian ships, which is a real bummer. It really is. Yeah, I really wish that wasn't the case. But also, as I said before, the quality of life assets available to science, especially for high-end science, most of it is stuck behind really expensive paywalls. That's what's been going on for a while. So, something to keep in mind. Now, for those of you that, with the recent change of Photonic Officer, like less than a month ago at this point, if you like that, or if you don't like Octobat, or your ship literally doesn't have enough engineering slots for Octobat, this is a decent alternative. So yeah, there is that. In my opinion, with the trait not being super spectacular for the carrier, in my opinion, it's weaker than other carriers inside the game. But yeah, thank you all for watching. Hopefully you all enjoyed this content. As I said, my budget science tank video is going to be coming out in just a couple of days, so feel free to stay tuned for that. But anyway, thank you all for watching, and enjoy the rest of your day.